Welcome to Mythology Matters once again, where ancient narratives unfold to reveal the profound connections between history, mythology, and theology. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, this is your chance to subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell. Every time we release a new story, you will be notified to come and watch the story. Don't forget to comment, share, and let's enjoy this video right away. Hinn and Binn. Twin spirits born from the earliest chaos, neither good nor evil, yet deeply connected to the unseen forces that shaped our world. Who were they? Why were they erased from history? And what secrets do they still hold? Long before jinn, before ancient religions, and before the word demon even existed, there were two mysterious entities whispered about in forgotten lore: Hinn and Binn. Twin spirits born from the earliest chaos, neither good nor evil, yet deeply connected to the unseen forces that shaped our world. Who are they? Why were they erased from history? And what secrets do they still hold? Today, we uncover the lost story. Chapter 1. The First Shadows. The Birth of Hinn and Binn. Before the rise of kingdoms, before the naming of gods, and long before the concept of demons took shape in human belief, there existed whispers. Ancient, almost forgotten echoes of two primordial beings known only as Hinn and Binn. Their names survived not in grand temples or sacred texts, but in fragments of oral tradition scattered across early Semitic folklore and desert legends. They are not widely remembered, yet their presence lingers in the foundations of what would later become the mythology of spirits, jinn, and demons. In the earliest age of the world, when humanity was still learning to interpret the forces around them, people believed the earth was inhabited by unseen beings. These entities were neither gods nor mortals. They were something older, something raw, tied not to the morality but to existence itself. Among these beings were Hinn and Binn, twin spirits said to have been created from the first breath of wind that moved across a lifeless earth. Unlike later supernatural entities that were categorized as good or evil, Hinn and Binn existed in a realm beyond such distinctions. They were embodiments of duality, not opposites, but reflections, where Hinn represented the subtle, hidden forces of the unseen, whispers, illusions, and silent influence. Binn embodied the more tangible aspects of chaos, movement, disturbance, disruption. Ancient storytellers described their birth as occurring in a time when the world was still unstable. The sky had not yet settled into its place. The earth trembled with shifting energies. In this chaotic environment, Hinn and Binn emerged not as rulers, but as observers and participants in the shaping of reality. Hinn, often associated with stillness, was said to dwell in quiet places, caves, shadows, and the spaces between thoughts. People believed Hinn could influence dreams, planting visions that felt both real and unreal. Travelers in ancient deserts told stories of hearing voices carried by the wind, guiding or misleading them. These were believed to be the subtle manipulations of Hinn. Binn, on the other hand, was rarely still. Described as restless and unpredictable, Binn was associated with sudden storms, shifting sands, and unexplained disturbances. if a campfire flickered violently without wind, or if footsteps echoed where no one walked, it was said Binn had passed through. While Hinn whispered, Binn acted. Together, they represented the earliest understanding of invisible forces influencing human life. Before structured religion introduced the idea of moral judgment among supernatural beings, Hinn and Binn existed as neutral forces, neither benevolent nor malevolent. They simply were. However, as human societies grew and began forming structured beliefs, the presence of such beings became harder to define. People sought to categorize the unknown, to label it as either good or evil, divine or demonic. This shift in perception marked the beginning of the transformation of Hinn and Binn in human storytelling. As early as the religious systems began to emerge in the ancient Near East, the idea of unseen beings evolved. The concept of jinn, supernatural entities made from smokeless fire, started to take shape. In some early interpretations, Hinn and Binn were considered ancestors or predecessors of these beings. They were not jinn themselves, but something older, a prototype of spiritual existence. Some traditions suggest that Hinn and Binn were among the first to inhabit the earth and before humanity. In these accounts, they were part of an ancient race that lived, struggled, and eventually faded, and were replaced. Their story became intertwined with the belief that the world had experienced cycles of creation and destructions long before human memory. One of the most intriguing aspects of their legend is the idea that they were not alone. Hinn and Binn were said to belong to a larger, forgotten order of beings, entities that existed in a time when the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds were thin. These beings interacted with the environment directly, shaping the earliest landscapes through their presence. But as time passed, their influence began to wane. With the rise of more structured mythologies, new figures emerged: powerful gods, organized pantheons, and clearly defined spirits. In this new order, there was little room for ambiguous entities like Hinn and Binn. Their stories were not entirely erased, but they were absorbed, reinterpreted, or forgotten. In some regions, Hinn became associated with trickster spirits, while Binn was linked to destructive forces. Over generations, these interpretations shifted further, eventually blending into the broader concept of demons and malevolent entities. What was once neutral became feared. Yet, traces of their original nature remain. Even today, in some remote traditions, there are whispers of twin spirits that move unseen, one silent, one restless. They are not invoked, not worshipped, and rarely named, but their presence is acknowledged. In the unexplained, the feeling of being watched, the sudden shift in atmosphere, that dream that feels too real to forget. These echoes suggest that while Hinn and Binn may have faded from the mainstream mythology, they were never entirely gone. Instead, they become part of a deeper subconscious understanding of the unknown, a reminder of a time before humans divided the world into light and darkness. Their story is not just about ancient spirits, but about the evolution of human belief that reflects the transition from a world filled with undefined forces to one structured by religion and moral frameworks. Hinn and Binn stand at the threshold of all this transformation, beings caught between the chaos of the past and the order of the future, and yet their mystery endures. For in every culture, there are stories of something older than demons, something that does not seek worship or fear, but simply exists beyond understanding. Hinn and Binn may be among the earliest of these beings, a glimpse into a forgotten age where the world was still learning to define itself. If you have reached this part of the video, please go ahead and like, comment what has been the most fascinating about Hinn and Binn. And you think in the society today, it is something we'll probably associate with the ancient mythological stories, or it is something that is open about debate. I can't wait to hear your stories. I can't wait to hear your views about Hinn and Binn and the society today. Chapter 2. The Vanishing Legacy, from primordial spirits to forgotten shadows. As civilizations advanced and belief systems became more structured, the world of spirits underwent a profound transformation. What was once fluid, mysterious, and undefined began to take shape within organized frameworks of religion and mythology. It was during this transition that the memory of Hinn and Binn began to fade. Not suddenly, but gradually, like footprints disappearing in the desert sand. Their decline was not due to insignificance, but rather the opposite. Hinn and Binn belonged to a category of beings too ancient, too abstract, to fit neatly into the emerging systems of belief. As humans sought clarity and control over the unknown, they began to favor entities that could be clearly understood. Gods with personalities, spirits with roles, and demons with defined intentions. In this new worldview, ambiguity became uncomfortable. The ancient storytellers who once spoke of Hinn and Binn began to reinterpret them. Their neutral nature, once seen as a reflection of the world's balance, was gradually reshaped into something more aligned with human fears. The unseen forces they represented were no longer simply part of existence, they became threats. This shift is particularly evident in the development of demonology. As religions in the ancient, Near East, and beyond introduced the concept of moral duality, good versus evil, beings that could not be easily classified were often pushed into the category of the dangerous or forbidden. Hinn and Binn, for example, once neutral observers of the world, were increasingly associated with chaos and disorder. Over time, their identities merge with other supernatural concepts. In some traditions, they were linked to early interpretations of wandering spirits, entities that existed between worlds, unable to fully interact with either the physical or the divine. In others, they were seen as remnants of a previous creation, beings that belonged to a world that no longer existed. This idea of a world before the world became a recurring theme in ancient mythology. Many cultures developed stories about early races or beings that inhabited the earth before humanity. These beings were often portrayed as powerful, mysterious, and ultimately doomed. Hinn and Binn fit perfectly into this narrative. According to some interpretations, they were part of a primordial age that ended in upheaval, whether through divine intervention, natural catastrophe, or the natural evolution of the world. Their time came to an end. Humanity inherited the earth, and with it, only fragments of the knowledge of what came before. What makes Hinn and Binn particularly fascinating is how their story reflects a broader pattern in human belief, the tendency to forget or transform what cannot be easily explained. Unlike more prominent mythological figures, they were never given elaborate temples or detailed scriptures. Their existence relied entirely on oral tradition, a form of storytelling that is both powerful and fragile. As generations passed, details were lost, altered, or replaced. Eventually, their names themselves became obscure. but their influence did not disappear completely. Elements of Hinn and Binn can still be seen in later myths and legends. The idea of twin spirits, one subtle, one active, appears in various cultures, often in different forms. Sometimes they're depicted as opposing forces, other times as complementary aspects of a single whole. This duality is a recurring theme in human understanding of the supernatural. In many ways, Hinn and Binn can be seen as early representations of this concept. They embody the idea that the unseen world is not defined by simple categories, but by complexity and balance. Their existence challenges the notion that all supernatural beings must fit into clear roles. Another enduring aspect of their legacy is the connection to the environment. Ancient descriptions of Hinn and Binn often tie them to natural phenomena, the wind, the desert, the shifting landscape. This suggests that early humans used these spirits as a way to explain the unpredictable forces around them. Before scientific understanding, the behavior of nature itself seemed alive, intentional, and sometimes unsettling. Hinn and Binn were not just spirits, they were explanations. As human knowledge grew, these explanations were replaced by more structured systems. Natural phenomena became understood through observation and science, and the need for such spirits diminished. Yet, the emotional and psychological impact of the unknown remained. Even in modern times, people experience moments that feel unexplainable, a sudden chill, a sense of presence, a dream that lingers too vividly. While we may no longer attribute these experiences to Hinn and Binn, they echo the same feelings that gave rise to their legend. In this way, Hinn and Binn have never truly vanished. They exist not as active figures in mythology, but as symbols of humanity's earliest attempts to understand the unseen. They represent a time when the boundaries between reality and imagination were fluid, and when the world was filled with mystery. Their story also serves as a reminder of how belief evolves. What we consider truth today may one day become a myth, just as the myths of the past were once accepted as reality. Hinn and Binn are part of this ongoing cycle, a testament to the ever-changing nature of human understanding. And perhaps that is their greatest legacy. Not as forgotten spirits, but as a reflection of the human mind itself, curious, imaginative, and always searching for meaning in the unknown. Somewhere in the quiet spaces between history and legend, their names still linger. Hinn and Binn. Yet echoes of their presence remain in whispers, shadows, and the mysteries we still cannot explain. If beings like these existed before recorded history, what else has been lost to time? Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying tuned on Mythology Matters. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you have not yet subscribed to the channel. Join us as we uncover more ancient secrets hidden in darkness. Until next time, bye-bye.